You're listening to the Ones Ready podcast, a team of Air Force special operators forged in combat with over 70 years of combined operational experience, as well as a decade of selection instructor experience. If you're tired of settling and you want to do something you truly believe in, you're in the right place. Now here's your host, PJ team leader, former INDOC instructor supervisor, entrepreneur, and physician assistant, Brian Silva.
What's up, everybody? Brian Silva here. Welcome back to another Ones Ready podcast. You're in the team room with Peach, Trent, and our very special guest today, Tiffany Hart, SERE Specialist. She's going to be talking to us about her career field and her job and how much she likes to get her jump on. But first, I want to get a big shout out to Eberly Stock, really awesome company, veteran owned, based out of Idaho, and they supply really awesome lifetime warranty type of equipment that all of us have a piece of equipment from them, or a jacket or a pouch or whatever, and they put out solid equipment. They'll replace anything that gets damaged and make sure that you are comfortable in that ruck. If you're getting ready for selection or getting ready for anything really, just out in the mountains, day of backpacking or hunting, make sure you check them out. Use the code ONESREADY. Like I said, lifetime warranty. They make really awesome products, and you should definitely go check them out. Code ONESREADY. So, like I said, we're going to be talking to SERE Specialist Tiffany Hart. She's been in the career field for a long time. You might also know her from the Broettes podcast. So go check that out also. Make sure you give us a shout. But very honored and glad to have her here with us, talking to us about the SERE Specialist. So if you don't mind, Tiffany, I'm going to ask you just one icebreaker type question, just a warm-up question, because all those people out there in SERE, and I was talking to some people today, they're like, I didn't know SERE did things like that, honestly. But so what was the weirdest thing that you've eaten as a SERE Specialist, and what would you say, I don't know, something that you like that you didn't think you were going to like when you ate it?
I mean, I feel like if you explain anything that we'd eat, people are going to think it's weird. So I would probably say the two things that were probably the most disgusting were goat balls and banana slugs. Particularly, I'm gonna steer away from banana slugs. And actually, it's funny because you guys had Justin Gordon on. He's another SERE Specialist. Mm-hmm. And it was that phase of training where you kind of did rock, paper, scissors. And I was the first to lose. And Gordon made sure he picked the biggest banana slug for me to eat. So he's still got it coming. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
So it was a nice UC. Huh?
But I think the best thing that I've eaten that I didn't think I would like were ants. And particularly, like bigger. And the bigger they are and the darker they are, the more acidic taste they have. And they kind of taste like lemon drops. And I particularly would seek those out and eat those all the time. So.
I say the same thing. They're like sour candies. Those big black ants.
Yeah, mm-hmm. That was a delicacy when we were up there in SERE school for Fairchild. Everyone had to try that, and of course,
actually, those are the things my students would always eat.
Yeah, they actually taste pretty good. That's the only thing I've eaten that and grasshoppers, but no banana slugs or goat balls. I don't know if I really want to try that, but
there's still time.
Yeah, there's still time. I mean, why not? Try everything once, right?
What about the eyeball? Did they have you guys eat the eyeball?
I don't remember.
Well, there's only two of them, so.
Yeah.
So, unless you have a few rabbits, so.
Yeah. Everybody that volunteered in my group to eat the eyeballs, they were like, nah, someone else.
We always do that.
Yeah. All right. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about more of your career and just kind of introduce yourself, where you've been, who you are, and what you do.
So my name is Tiffany Hart. I am a SERE Specialist in the United States Air Force. I joined the military back in 2007, and I went straight in as what we call a true blood SERE Specialist. So it was the job that I had picked to do when I first joined, and it was the first and only job that I had in the entire military service that I have served thus far. I initially decided to join the military based upon the fact that I was pretty lost in life. I had no clue what I wanted to do. It felt like at a very young age in high school that my future was mapped out, not just from my parents, but from a lot of people in high school, thinking I should go to college right after, get married at some point during college, maybe use my degree, have kids, and that was going to be my life. And I didn't feel like that was going to be my story. I felt lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do my first year of college. I luckily got a college, a full-ride scholarship basically for track. So I did that, but I wasn't as passionate about it as I was in high school. So I took a year off, and during this year break, I ended up finding out a lot more about the Air Force, researched it, talked to a recruiter. I initially actually wanted to go PJ, based upon the information that I heard. I was on a swim team for 12 years. I broke many records, obviously being a collegiate track runner, and I did want to go into a medical profession. So that seemed pretty much right out my alley. But of course, back in 2007, females were not allowed. So I kind of asked him what the next best thing was I could do. And he actually took out a SERE brochure that had dust on it and was like, hey, look at this. And I looked at mainly the big things that I looked for was like the qualifications, what I had to do to enter the job. And I realized, okay, this is challenging. This is what I like. This is right up my avenue. And also on top of that too, I did a speech class. My mom would always encourage me to do, more public speaking. And of course, once I realized it was a teaching position, that kind of suited my fancy as well. So essentially what initially got me into the job was knowing that it was going to be challenging. I was going to be outdoors a lot, and that it was physically demanding. And throughout time, I actually fell in love with it.
I'm taking notes here. SERE, the next best thing. That's the official motto now for SERE from here on out.
Excuse me, that was in 2007. My opinion has officially changed.
I feel like there's a tab that says the next best thing that someone's wearing right now.
You're not still thinking about the PJ thing?
Oh, I actually got asked when I was deployed, I think it was by a PJ, if I can go into any job and go back and do it, what would I do? And I told him I would be a combat controller. Now
Flip-flopped on us.
Shots fired.
Now that I know what everyone does. Because at the time when you first join, you just don't know. And I was also with, where was I at? I was with Moffitt, PJs. So then again, I don't know if they were, what I saw is what I saw. So.
Nice.
That's perfect.
Those guys at Moffitt love this episode.
Yep.
Oh yeah. No, it wasn't bad, but you just what I saw right there was the only glimpse that I saw, and I had a PJs operationally, right? So when you see that, you kind of just assume big picture, which is a bad assumption that they all do that, which they do not. So.
No. Hey, and you weren't alone either. I mean, I didn't know anything about combat control. I originally came in as a PJ, found out about combat control while I was at INDOC. So, and then I swapped. But so with the SERE Specialist orientation course, like obviously it is a struggle for a lot of people. At what point did you struggle? Like, what were some of the friction points that you had?
The struggle that I had was pull-ups. So before I even took my SERE pass test, I saw, obviously all the qualifications, and my upper body strength for me at the time was not strong. I was a runner. So that's what I had in the bank there. So I remember attempting my first pull-up, could not even do a single one. Back in 2007, it was 6 to enter. So I got myself a personal trainer and worked on pull-ups nonstop, along with my push-ups. Push-ups were not bad, but pull-ups was something that I really did struggle on. And I get asked all the time, what's the best way to get better at pull-ups? And it's actually more pull-ups, just creating that good muscle memory. Perfect practice makes perfect. So if you're going to do a pull-up, you better do it right. Not those little, kind of half-assed ones. Yeah. You do them all the way down, all the way up. And it helped me with my struggles. And that was probably the main thing that I struggled with. That was probably the only thing that I struggled with, and which was good to have that one thing that I had to work on. And I still work on continuously. I always improve upon my pull-ups daily.
So, I mean, you were, collegiate swimmer, collegiate runner, did you have to prepare at all, or did you just kind of come in cold going like, well, you're getting handed the dusty brochure and you're figuring out what SERE is? Did you just go, all right, we'll do it live kind of thing?
So I was a sprinter. So anything beyond a 400 meter for me was a no-go. So the fact that I had to run 1.5 miles, I was like, are you crazy? So I will say that before I joined, the only thing that I did to work out and the only thing I did to prepare, which I am cautious about telling people this, is because of my athletic background, because everyone's body composition and their background and their athletic ability is very different. So I say, you might not want to do what I did. You might want to prepare a little bit more, but I just did the pass test every time I went to the gym. I just gave myself that SERE pass. I made sure, and sometimes that would be my warm up and then I would just lift later on. So, and by the way, I had no idea what I was lifting and doing anyway. So, obviously, I don't know, obviously something worked, but the biggest thing is that's what helped out is, I gave myself the exact test with the time limits in there, with the rest stops in there. And by the way, when you actually give yourself the test, it's a lot harder than just, doing push-ups here and there and pull-ups here and there and then the run, whatever you want. When you actually do it the way it's prescribed, it's much harder. So I think train as you fight. That's the best advice I can give there. And that's what I did unknowingly at that time. And it helped prepare me a lot.
You're right. And that whole test, the pass test, is designed to do that. It is designed to fatigue you. And a lot of people make the mistake of training. I'm just doing a lot of pull-ups. I'm just doing a lot of sit-ups and push-ups and so on. And they never actually tie any of them together. And I've probably done 10 pass tests with people that say they're ready to go. And then they show up and they were like, man, I don't know why I failed. I had no problem with this. Have you done the full test at all? Nope, I didn't try it. I'm like, dude, how can you do that?
How do you know?
I can do 100 push-ups when I'm rested. Yeah, like what's the big deal? I should still do 100 push-ups.
So Tiffany, did you, obviously 2007, age of the internet still, did you, and I think YouTube was around then as well. Did you go on YouTube or were you able to find any information on SERE Specialist?
So, I hate to age myself, but I felt like the internet was a little bit more foreign back then, right? But I was told to look up Go SERE. I think it was GoSERE.com. And they had information on there. Essentially, they were showing components of the pass test and how to conduct them appropriately, which I thought was very helpful. And that's basically kind of what I went off of. I think they also had like a training program on there. I could not remember it to save my life, but I think I do recall trying to do a few days of that. And beyond that, I know they had 64.4 information on there, which is a survival handbook. And I kind of started to read it and I was like, there's no way. I'm just going to take it with, one day at a time, and whatever they give me, I'll just learn it that way. And beyond that, that's really kind of all I got. I tried to Google a little bit more, but the only other thing that I really looked up was banana slug versus snake video, because we had a rumor that we were going to eat banana slugs. So my buddy looked up banana slug versus snake, and that prepared me to not eat that insect. So.
Nice.
Anything about, just
it.
along that same training vein, anything about rucking specifically? Because I know the SERE pipeline is fairly heavy on that. You didn't do any of that kind of stuff prior to showing up?
No, I did. I remember I had a buddy who gave me his West Point ruck. It was super old school. And he was like, hey, and I didn't even try it because it was about to fall apart. So I did no rucking. The first time I put on that ruck was the minute they gave it to us.
Nice.
Thank God. And this is why I also tell people, like, thank God I was this track athlete. I had very strong legs. We had a lifting program in college. I was able to adapt and kind of overcome. I will say that I was not the best at rucking when I first began, right? I was like middle of the pack, but thank God for muscle memory and really good cadre and instruction. I tell people this all the time, is that even if you might not be prepared on certain things, you might not know how to sharpen a knife, which I did not know how to sharpen a knife before I got there. Or tie certain knots or ruck a certain way, or how to even wear a ruck. They teach you everything. What you have to do is be a sponge and soak it up. You have to listen and then do it and regurgitate, right? And so that's all I did. And I think for me, it helped with me not going in with a lot of knowledge, because the nerves helped me soak up that information. I wanted to learn more. I didn't come in knowing a lot of stuff and then blowing off their instruction, which I've seen that happen before too. So with the ruck, after we did, I think it was a 7-8 mile hike in Government Canyon down in Texas. When I did my test, I knocked about a good 10 minutes off my test time. So I was pretty happy with that. And rucking was my strong suit throughout, one of my strong suits throughout team. So I didn't have a problem with that.
Nice.
Which was so pull-ups, I was still, working on.
Right. Well, like based on the Dusty pamphlet, your dial-up internet searches, and I'm sure your recruiter was just a wealth of information. What was your expectations for what SERE was going to be, and what was the reality, and what, if anything, surprised you about what your actual job was when you first got on the ground and got running?
So what I was first told about SERE is I was going to kill a rabbit. I was going to teach, and I would be put into a box, and that was it. And I was like, this is a very interesting job that I'm going into. So obviously, one thing that they started to integrate back in 2007, which we were one of the first teams for it, is they started a pre-team. And this is where you had a couple cadre kind of introduce you to what SERE Specialist actually did. They would maybe make you teach a lesson, make you do a firecraft, make you teach a sheltercraft lesson. And this kind of got everyone a little bit of taste of what it would be like to be a SERE Specialist. And actually, in fact, because of them doing that, we lost about 5 or 6 really good guys because they actually realized what SERE is now, or at least they did at that time, and they left because they knew it wasn't for them. So thank God now with recruiters, right? They now have this wealth of information and they are more in touch with the communities that they know and can explain this. And there's, podcasts like this that are helping get the information out there. So luckily I had that little glimpse. And when I got that glimpse and I went through SVD, I fell in love with the job. So for me, I was not surprised when, we got to my first duty station, which was still Fairchild. And I was actually applying the job and the duty. Like, I loved it. So for me, that worked out very well.
So you get through the pipeline and you're an instructor like right away. You just, back seat, front seat, whatever. And then you're an instructor.
Almost. Yeah. Almost. You graduate. And you maybe have a few nights of drinking and partying with your friends and family. And then boom, you're straight into the field flights and you're back to being nothing again. By the way, it was so exciting, right? Like you graduate, you're like, yes, I'm at the top. I've done it. And then you get there and they're like, you're not even really technically SERE yet. So sit down and let's learn. And you start from square one kind of again. And they said, we're going to take everything that you applied in training and we're now going to use this to build you into this instructor so that you as a young airman can carry these crews with higher ranking individuals who have a lot more experience and knowledge in the military than you do, but you're going to be telling them what to do still. So basically you go through a certification process, which is a 6-month time period. It should be 6 months. For some, it's a little bit earlier. For some, it's a little bit later. And then after that, you're a full-on qualified instructor. And then they start you off slow. And then, of course, they, it's like a crawl, walk, run.
Yeah, I always thought that was really interesting how it was like a senior airman, it was the same rank as me when I was going through SERE school, but there are a bunch of majors and colonels and, super high ranking people that are pilots and, top of the food chain type of guys, all the fighter pilots and guys that have attitudes. And a lot of them have egos about themselves on, whether or not they should listen to a SERE specialist that's a senior airman. But I saw it go kind of the other way. Also, whenever we first went out there, because a lot of them want their hand to be held the whole way. They're like, I don't know what to do. I'm totally out of my element. Put me back in a cockpit in a chair where it's air conditioned and I'm comfortable. Like they don't know what to do once they get in there and they kind of freeze. So do you have any weird experiences kind of like that?
Yes. I think there's pros and cons to, being a female instructor in a way. I know this sounds strange and I normally never bring this up, but I never had a bad student really. And I think that's contributed to the fact that when I had female students, they saw a female doing the things that they were, they saw me as a female teaching a lesson and doing all the objectives. And they were like, oh, and they had the confidence that they could do it very easily too. And they did. And then I had male students who made sure to never to never complain, and they had to outperform me, right? Because I was their female instructor, which they were sad to, to see that. They were like, man, she's really good at her job because this is not happening. But it was good. And yes, there was a few times that I had students out there who've never seen snow before. It was the first time ever seeing a cow in their life on the way up there. They were like, I had one student who talked for hours. Like, I can't believe it was a cow. It just would go on and on and on. And I was like, this is going to be a very interesting field experience. And I actually always appreciate those students, in all honesty, because those are the ones who listened intently. Those are the ones who performed almost perfectly out there because they had no idea what they were doing. And therefore, their keenness with my instruction was dead on. And they did very well for themselves.
Hey, you didn't have to break any scar tissues or bad habits.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
They're like, I just want to make it.
I would say they do. I would say the ones I had to break bad habits of were the ones who apparently did like Cub Scouts, Eagle Scouts, Boy Scouts, anything like that. Those were some of the ones I was like, okay, simmer down. And then, of course, as you can imagine, some of the fighter pilots that were going through. I had one at one point in time. I had to, professionally get on him,
of course,
for, having his guys being late to a lesson and not, being the good element leader that I asked him to be and doing some of the things I asked him to do. And I remember he's like, do you mind just stepping out of the room for a second? I said, yeah, sure thing. And I was still in training at the time. And poor guy, one fighter pilot had a bunch of PJs, the SERE guys, and like tack keys, right? So that's all he's dealing with. And all I can hear through the door is, I will not be yelled at by an airman. And on top of that, I will not be yelled at by a female airman. So you guys better square yourselves away.
Ooh.
And I just thought it was kind of funny because I was like, okay. And he ended up giving me the best critique at the end of the course because he ended up learning a little lesson in being humble out in the field. And he ended up being replaced by my youngest airman, who was a PJ, because he just couldn't do his job. So it's amazing what you can learn when you're out there. And, it doesn't matter on your rank or your skill or your job. I've had many different students out there who do really well or, they learn a lot.
That's awesome. You learn a lot about yourself. And a lot of the courses we go through, because you're just mixed in with such a wide variety of people that, like you said, some people have never seen a cow in their life, and some people have never been out in the forest or seen those kind of trees and mountains. So yeah, I think that's really awesome. So you spent a couple of years as the instructor, and then as far as deployments as a SERE person, for PJs, I guess, and CCT, you get videos of like, okay, PJs are going to go, be in a helicopter, fixed wing, jump, rescue people. CCT, you're going to go drop some bombs. SR, you're going to go be sneaky and hide places and do stuff like that. For SERE Specialist, you're just talking about the instruction aspect. So what do you do when you're downrange? You're not really doing as much instruction. What kind of stuff are you doing?
Well, when you think about it at the core of who we are still instructors. So there was still some instruction, which when I was deployed, it was back in 2012. So there was still like some Army units out there who would actually ask for SERE training. There were some guys who had to get HRIs while they were in theater still. There was some and non-governmental organizations who asked for like specific escape training or something like that, who were going beyond the wire and doing certain things that we were authorized to give them training for. So we did do a little bit of that, but that wasn't much. I know Justin had hit on it, but we do a lot of advising out there, particularly with personal recovery. And that's kind of our niche. We kind of get put into this personal recovery, aspect and the whole cog in the machine. And we're there to kind of just help give information. We're not there actively doing the recovery, but we are there if anyone does need help. So of course, since we were giving the students this instruction, that if they were to get shot down or if they were to grow a stitch, whatever it might be, and find themselves on the ground, we have this wealth of knowledge to know like, hey, this is where they should be going. This is what they're doing. This is a signal that they'll be using So therefore, when we send in any type of recovery force, traditionally, they're asking us like, hey, what are we looking for? And also too, like getting information on that individual, that aircrew member, and possibly passing anything pertinent along that could help, whether to find them or to help locate, whether to give them medical support, anything of that sort. So what I've noticed in SERE when it comes to deployments is a deployment's kind of all what the SERE guy makes of it. And if you're constantly looking for work and you're looking to help, you will always be employed. So that's one thing I noticed, because you'll hear sometimes that we will, sit down in front of a computer and just review ISO preps and EPAs all day. And don't get me wrong, I've done a fair share of those because that is somewhat part of the job to make sure they're done correctly. But at the same time, there's a lot more out there if you're looking.
Yeah, that was one of the jokes from one of our previous podcasts talking about SERE people, and they just somehow, because you're great at public speaking, great at getting people to like you, because that's your job when you're out there as an instructor, initially. But when you're deployed, you can mix into everyone. You're like, hey, this is what I got to offer. And then you can go out there and pretty much find yourself on a lot of different in a lot of different talks and a lot of different missions than, like PJs, because we're kind of stuck to our team, and you guys are out there as like a more sole entity, and you can be kind of farmed out to anybody that might need that kind of stuff. So I thought that was really, I was kind of jealous about, the amount of freedom you guys had of lateral movement back and forth across the compound. But, and we always kind of joked about how you guys always had your own little compound at most of the places that we go. You always had the best reintegration type of equipment.
I was going to say, listen, when you have a reason for everything, right? So it's our reintegration center, which you guarantee, that all the guys tricked out with like the best PlayStations or whatever, like, an IP might need it because they want to decompress. It's like, okay, that's what it is, huh? But it was great. Yeah, if you had really good leadership out there, you got to move around quite a bit. I got to rub shoulders with everyone up in Mos Sharif up north and the Germans and help them actually establish their joint operations center, because they were going off on their own, and they were going to be in charge of their own recovery, because recovery was getting pulled basically from the Bagram area of Afghanistan from them, and they had their own extraction teams, and they were coming up with everything on their own. And so they sent me up there along with the JPRA representative, and we helped them establish that. And that was amazing with the PR background and training that I got before I left. And then on top of that too, I even got to go down south and rub shoulders with the Brits, the Apache pilots, who were amazing, and give them a little bit of instruction on what, based upon what we can give them. And they appreciate it, just in case they ever found themselves on the ground. And it's stuff like that where you didn't think you'd be able to do it. But when you get asked to do something, if you just say yes, I'm the type of person that if you were presented with the opportunity, just say yes. Because you have the tendency to look back and be like, man, why did I do that? And most of the time, you never regret it. So,
exactly.
All part of networking.
Yeah, exactly. You guys are good at it. So you talk about pre-deployment training. Like I said, for everyone else, it's kind of more straightforward. You're going to this AOR, area responsibility, and you're going to cover down on whatever. There's mountains. PJ is going to train in mountains. There's a river or something. You're going to train in that. So for you guys, what kind of pre-deployment spin-ups and what kind of training do you guys get, since you mentioned it?
Well, if you got lucky, you got to go to probably some like Griffin shooting course beforehand. So at least you knew. So at least it made you look like you knew how to handle a weapon, because we're not like constantly shooting and handling them. So, but they wanted to make sure we looked like we could, so we don't embarrass ourselves out there. But they do put us through some of that. We have a shop called XP for experiential training, and so these guys, it's kind of like their niche in what they do. So actually, a lot of it, I got the breakdown of the chain, of how it works out there, the entire cell, and basically what J1 or C1 right is, and this information that you never got as a SERE specialist before, that is just kind of well known in the Army community. And of course, different ranks, training, and different training on basically the geography of who we're going to be dealing with, and how, they treat individuals and what we can and cannot teach one another. So a lot of it was informational. It wasn't as much hands-on training because we're not really doing much hands-on over there. Since we're the ones rubbing shoulders with one another, we need to make sure that we know and have the knowledge to speak appropriately on things and know and make sure that we are, if we are giving information, to make sure it's to the right people, and that's within, the guidelines of all the security training that we get.
Yeah, and that's huge for those guys that are going out there. Just basically, you're learning another language, learning all about the culture, and being able to relate to the air crews or whoever's going to be out there. Like, hey, this is what they do. This is what you're going to expect. Use this hand, not this hand, when you're waving to people, or don't stick your feet out the bottom of the helicopter because they don't like that kind of stuff, or all that different stuff that we used to get briefed. And we're like, I never would have thought about that kind of stuff, but that can incite and spark whatever kind of take happens, because they just think to them, they see you as using the wrong hand, like flipping them off, basically the same thing to those people. So all that stuff is super important whenever you go down range. So kind of switching gears a little bit here. Where do you see the SERE career field? Because I know, everything's changing within spec war from every career field, and the merger and all that stuff going on. What do you see for SERE specialists as far as the future?
Well, it's hard to say. I feel like now that I'm in the reserves, I've been out of the loop just a little bit with some of the things. I do know that because of the whole COVID situation, that they are adjusting training just a little bit. And what I mean by that is, when we have students go through SERE training, they go through this 19-day course that is level C. So it's high risk of isolation. And what they're realizing is that even though we group everyone in this high risk of isolation bubble, not all of them need this very intense 19-day course that we have been putting them through. So they're starting to group up people. It seems to be in 3 different groups now that they are taking like maybe OSI agents or flight attendants, or even just kind of like basic medics, and putting them in, hey, you're going to get these 5 days of training. I don't know if you guys ever heard of ECAC before, but it's evasion, conduct, after capture, and it's kind of like the meat and potatoes of what they need to know. And I feel like it's something similar to what they're getting. Right now, I currently train heavy crews. So, I have refueler crews, but kind of along the same line. So the heavy guys, right, C-130, C-17, C-5s, and then also the refuelers. So, KC-135 and now the KC-46. These guys, when you think about it realistically, they're not going to be really landing or kind of egressing out of the plane. They all the refuelers have their parachutes taken away, so they always joke about how there's basically a big bomb. So why would they land anyway? So traditionally, these guys might get, if they do endure any type of SERE training, it's going to be because something erupts in the location that they're at, and then they have to go ahead and do their SERE training. So we're going to adjust to that too.
Why did they take away parachutes from?
You want to get a little of this to save money.
Oh,
whoa!
I'm telling you right now, every single 135 pilot that we ever had go through SERE training is so disgruntled about it, because they're like, "Why am I even going through SERE training?" Apparently, they took, no joke, they took parachutes off to save money, so that they can put more gas on the plane. I don't even know.
I'm sorry, refuelers. You guys aren't worth, I guess, the 10 pounds of gas or whatever.
It's cool. Yeah. They're brand new platforms, so they never break down and nothing ever goes wrong, so it's fine.
Yeah.
They're very nice planes, I'll tell you that. So the way ahead looks to me, like we are adjusting accordingly to what's kind of happening in the environment around us. And that's really kind of about it. We're still saying hey, we're going to give you guys the best training available, and but we're going to tailor it a little bit more to you. And that's kind of about the way ahead. Now, when it comes to the whole spec warfare, I'm not going to speak upon that because I'm not the most educated on that. I don't want to give away any type of false information. I read up on it sometimes, but that's not something that's directly in my lane, so I don't want to give any credit.
Cool. I get one of my favorite questions, as per usual, So like Brian's done, I got to get in my question. So we get this all the time, and it's my personal favorite question, and it's going to be your personal favorite question. Day-to-day life, what's it like as a SERE specialist? What do you do? I'm sure it's the same every day. One thing we know for certain, that when you went from active duty to like guard or reserves, your day got a lot better. People bring you like lattes for lunch or whatever. I don't know. That's just the vibe I've been getting from the
You don't have to
reservists.
do things if you don't want to.
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm fine. But
Yeah.
just give us like a general breakdown of you know, a normal-ish day as a SERE specialist, active duty versus reserves as well, please.
Okay. So, well, I guess it kind of depends. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to give you guys a day in the life of a base level SERE specialist, because after you get away from what we call the mothership at Fairchild, you're most likely going to be just a base level SERE specialist, whether you are attached to a PJ unit, an RQS, or whether you're attached to an aircrew unit. You are that SERE guy for that unit, right? We are support for them. However, they still need us to fly, so we use that to our advantage. But essentially, these guys go through, you know, SV80 and this long period of SERE training, and every few years they need refresher training. So what you're doing is when aircrew initially gets to their base, you have to give them a local area survival training. So you always give them that. So you're giving that often because you have people coming in, coming out. You'll teach emergency parachute training, do refresher on that. You'll do a refresher water survival training. You'll do a refresher combat survival training or non-combat survival training, depending upon whether you guys are deployed or whether it's a training base. And you teach conduct after capture. So all of these you're teaching kind of like mini SERE lessons for these guys. Traditionally, we try to tailor these down to like 2 weeks out of the month, right? So for 2 weeks out of the month, or possibly even one, depending upon how many aircrew you have, you're doing this refresher training for them. The other few weeks, we traditionally reserve for your own currencies, the fun stuff, paperwork. You know, the Air Force is full of it. You know, additional duties and stuff like that. Jump currencies, if you are jump qualified, depending upon how many qualifications you have, you need to be upkeeping those and staying sharp on those. Any type of upgrade training as a SERE instructor. And then, of course, also like going to, you know, on TDYs. So that's essentially kind of what your day is like, is you're kind of doing anything and everything to accomplish those things for the month. And it doesn't have to be Groundhog Day, because if you're in charge out there, you get to make your own schedule. Essentially, the difference between active duty and the reserves is that in the reserves, you're doing the exact same thing, but it's just everything compressed into, you know, however many days that your unit allows you to work. Which I will say this is that as a SERE guy, you're not working just the weekends and 15 days a year. I work today. I traditionally work during the week if I do, because I'm allowed to move I don't have to work weekends. They allow me to move it around. And when I give mass training, I will work on a weekend. But traditionally, I'm working anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks a month still as a reservist, depending. So you still work quite a bit, and you can work more if you'd like. But, you know, you're quite busy if you do everything right.
That sounds pretty canned. Like, I see those SERE compounds that you guys have on all the bases. There's something happening back there. You guys are throwing ragers, and I don't know. You make it sound like it's all work and no play. You guys have all the best stuff.
No comment. She's just, yeah.
Smile and nod. Next question.
Yeah.
Stay in your circle.
What was that? I'm kind of thirsty.
Yeah. People won't get that right now, but they will later on.
Yeah.
They will later.
Okay, so you hit on that a little bit, and something I want to talk about now, which is not necessarily related to SERE, but you have recently become one of the personalities of a rather growing and successful media group. It was brought up earlier. You and Jesse Wiseman are on the Drinkin Broettes. You guys launched a couple months ago. As with the Drinkin Bros with Dan Holloway and Ross Patterson and Jared Taylor, and you guys have got a very successful podcasts, plural, and a business. And then you also started up your own company called American Heart. Do you want to touch on any of that?
Yeah. So I think if you're looking to go into the military, but I will say this, there's a lot of people who do want to go into the military and they want to go in these particular jobs. And there's even SERE guys that are active duty still in, but either things are changing and evolving for them and they want to find themselves doing something different, and working different avenues, but still doing SERE at the same time. And so for me, I ended up taking a break from active duty. And, I guess probably one of the hardest struggles of being a female in a job like mine, and with my husband being special forces in the Army, is that we're gone often. If, and our schedules kind of don't really fully mesh. So the only thing that I found difficult is just if I really want to start settling down and trying to have a family. And so for me, it was kind of a no-brainer when I heard about the reserves and the opportunity that I could still do my job, which I love so much, but, actually stay in one place for a while, as long as I really want, at a unit that I like, and kind of pick and choose my schedule. At the same time, be able to work on some of these other civilian goals of mine as well. So with that, I got an opportunity to go on Drinkin Broettes a few times, and they liked having me on, and they decided to start a female spinoff. It was something that was highly requested for a very long time. And so essentially Jesse and I did an episode together, and it went great. And they were like, cool, keep recording then. And we ended up coming out with our first 10, and we were on the charts for a while, and that was pretty incredible. So that's a great avenue for me. I'm an instructor, so I love the sound of my own voice. I think most SERE guys do. So talking on a podcast was wonderful. And of course, us being two chicks, we can talk all day long. So the fact that I'm now doing that and then getting paid for it is great. And I also did have a dream of one day to be an entrepreneur and starting my own business, and getting, out just working part-time allowed me to do that. And I would say for sure that my background in SERE and just in the military in general has helped really groom me to transition to that entrepreneurial role and being my kind of own boss and working in the business realm, because you learn a lot of really good work habits in your job that you apply, because but in this instance, when you're your own boss and you're doing your own job, like, everything's on you. If you fail, it's on you. And so that's kind of how it was in training too. Like, I couldn't blame anyone else if I failed except for myself, because if I, failed to train, then I failed. And so in this point, it's the same thing. So I kind of using that pressure that I felt back in the day to now, and a lot of different aspects that I'm applying, and it's great. So it's working out. And so now I feel like I kind of have a little bit of the best of both worlds. And I get asked often, like, hey, are you going to go back into active duty? And that's the best part, is I can. With SERE being an undermanned career field, I can go back into active duty, if I choose to later on at a certain point, or if I just want to stay reserves and retire out of the reserves because it's tacking on to my active duty time, I can do that as well. So flexibility that you have and the options that you have are kind of limitless, whatever you choose to do. And I'm really happy with the path I'm on right now.
No, I'd agree. And for the listeners, the reason why I asked that question is because we actually get it a lot of, out of the special warfare career fields, we each have our own niche job, but how does that translate into the civilian world and stuff like that? And people, all the time, hey, once you guys retire, or if somebody only does 6 years, 10 years, and they get out, what are they typically doing? And there's all kinds of answers. There's contracting, whether you're doing a staff job, whether you're flying, doing an, ISR sensor operator or other kind of contracting. There's law enforcement, there's the alphabet agencies, there's all kinds of different things that we could do. And like, you just took it and then went the entrepreneur route, which is also what a lot of people do. So I think Air Force Special Warfare and the SOF community in general really helps build and foster a lot of those characteristics that will enable people to be successful when they do eventually go out on their own. Totally on a soapbox there.
Absolutely. That, sorry, you broke up there at the end. one thing I get asked often is like, what are you going to do when you get out of the Air Force? Like, what do SERE guys normally do? And I'll be honest, I was like, well, SERE guys normally actually become SERE contractors. They just stay within that realm, right? And but I've actually seen guys open their own businesses and become very successful. Or, I mean, we had, no joke, probably one of the meanest guys to work at resistance training to this date. And he was just like he was just one of the flight chiefs that you just didn't want to mess around with. And he became like a manager of like, or human resource or something of Walmart. Like he had to deal with customers on a daily basis. And we're like, wait a second, how is this possible? Because you are not a friendly guy. But he used all of his SERE knowledge and his background in the military and everything that he learned. And he got up that, the management position very high in Walmart right away. And he was making six figures. So all the guys were like, oh, I'll just work for Walmart then. But I will say the options are limitless. Whatever you choose to do, a lot of stuff that you can do applies. And we just had a chief when I was last at Fairchild who was retiring soon, and he was interning as a tattoo artist. And he's in love with it, and he's great at it too. And of course, he's going to be always employed with SERE guys and, us in general. And he's wonderful at it though. And it kind of depends on what you want to do and the lane that you want to go in on. But I think whatever you want to do could work.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that you learn from being in these career fields is how to be competitive and then how to get that extra edge. I think all of us have been in that situation. Like we're around alpha type all day, all the time. And we're, whether we want to admit it or not, always competing against whatever. Like even with lockers, like you go to another person's locker and you're like, dang, where'd they get all that nice stuff from? How'd you get your locker to look so nice? Why are you always so set up? Like, it's just everything that we do is just ingrained in us. So, when we look at starting a business, we look at the competition and we're like, all right, how can we do better? What are they missing? What can I do and provide that, all these people can't provide? But yeah, I think I just wanted to throw that in there, and we just constantly try to improve and make ourselves better. Just like, the One's Ready, Drinkin Broettes, AmericanHeart.co. I was just checking it out, but super awesome. Like just constantly making ourselves better and becoming that person we want to be. So yeah.
Speaking of doing stuff,
absolutely,
getting better at things, are you still skydiving your face off or what?
So, well, here's the thing. I know I've heard comments before. Oh, those SERE guys, all they do is just jump and they strap hangers or whatever else. I'll say this. I won't even say lucky because it was my own luck. I created it myself, but I was about to leave Fairchild. I was trying to PCS out of there. I had a lot of time on station. I have 7 years time on station. So, I was going to get out of there quickly. And an ad came open for Edwards Air Force Base, which was a test parachuting program, but they also integrated that with SERE. So I would be a test parachutist, but also a SERE specialist. So I'd get my base level SERE knowledge in there and trained up on, but I also get to skydive. And I was like, this is awesome. And you needed to have Freefall for that. And I said, you know what? Screw it. Because worst case scenario, if I'm the only one who clicks on this job, I'll get it and they'll send me to Freefall. I had all my ducks in a row. I clicked on it. They had already non-volunteered 2 individuals to that job before me. And they were like, we are not non-volunteering anyone else because these 2 guys are bitter. And I got the job. And a lot of people were like, how'd she get this? She was not even qualified for it. And everyone's like, she was the only one who clicked on it, who had met almost all the qualifications except for that one. So when I first got there, I immediately went through Freefall school. And then all, the jam schools, and tested a lot of different parachuting systems, a lot of different equipment. We always had like TACP units and whatever, always trying to give us stuff to put on the approved for use list for them. Jumped with a lot of different
teams.
And it was a wonderful position because I love to teach, so I still got to do teaching. But then also the other 2 weeks I was jumping. So of course, as you can imagine, we're jumping at civilian drop zones, and you get qualified on what we call advanced parachute systems, which is basically just your civilian parachute. And you do some fun jumps here and there. So I've actually not really done that many civilian jumps. Most of the jumps I've done are military. And yeah, I was a test parachutist, fully qualified. So that's something that the SERE career field is like, hey, you need to upkeep those qualifications. So I'll have units. And the last unit I jumped with was the PJ unit down at Patrick Air Force Base, squared away group. They have a lot of great jumpers there, a lot of really good guys. And so I'm attached to them and I jump with them and give them training and also learn from some of the courses that they go through as well. So
Patrick's good, just not
Moffett. If I don't have to pay for it and the government lets me do it and they pay me to do it, I'll take it all day long.
That was awesome, Brian. I love. All right, we're throwing shade at Moffett and building up Patrick. There we go.
Patrick, thumbs up.
Who is
anyone in Florida, California?
Sorry, guys.
I'm not throwing shade. I'm just being honest.
That's okay because we know it. We know people at all of them.
Those guys out there in California just recruiting combat controllers, not.
Yeah.
By the way, Moffett was like forever ago, and I was a young SERE guy. So I only saw what I saw.
So speaking of being young, I know for me, and I think the other guys too, one of the things I always say to the new people is coming in is the only thing I can guarantee is that if you work hard and you keep saying yes, like you said, to everything, the only thing I can guarantee is it's worth it. At least for me, it was 100% worth it. So I kind of have a two-part question. Looking back at your career so far, was it worth it and why? And then after that, just your last piece of advice, one piece of advice you could give someone that's going to start the pipeline to not only make it through the selection and everything else, but have a really successful career and to come out the other side thinking it was worth it.
I mean, to me, it was absolutely worth it. I'm the type of person that I don't like to look at the past and do the whole what if game. And, maybe if I would have met someone instead or finished my degree in college. Like, I am so happy with the path that I took. It's saying yes to all the opportunities. If I really want to sit there and name off everything that I've done and all the things that I've accomplished and all the places that I've gone, the people that I met, it's astonishing. And I get goosebumps because I'm like, this is crazy to think that these opportunities were placed in my path because of a simple choice that I made. So I will never regret it. I'm so happy to be where I'm at now. And I would say the biggest piece of advice that I have for anyone going through training is mindset is everything. I have seen the strongest of men fail and quit because of their mindset. I'm telling you right now that the minute that you get quitting inside of your brain and it will just fester and it will become toxic and it will take over you. And all of a sudden now, in your head, quitting will be the answer for everything. And that's dangerous because eventually it's going to end up, that's going to be your fate. I was hand selected to go down to Texas and help out in the Women in Service Review Board because obviously they were letting women into special operations jobs. And it was mainly just there to kind of observe the pipeline and see if anything like clothing, facilities, anything training need to change to integrate women. And I was like really made sure to keep the standards the same. And I watched a PJ, I guess, health session or something like that. And the cadre were telling me that this, in fact, was probably one of the easier sessions I've ever given before. But these guys just were really getting down on themselves. And within the span of 5 minutes of them just doing push-ups and underwaters, 15 of them quit. And everyone was just in shock. And they were like, hey, do you want to go over and talk to those guys? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I, just kindly asked them, I said, hey, do you guys mind me asking why you guys decided to quit? And one of the first guys stood up and he said, I got to be honest, I really honestly thought that I could not do it. He goes, I got into my head. I told myself I could not do it, even though my body was physically still going. And that was major. And all the guys chimed in and they're like, yeah, I didn't think I could do it anymore. I felt like I was letting myself down. If I let myself down, I let the rest of the team down. And so what I'll say is the minute you get into your head, it starts this internal battle that you have to deal with. So you should be your best friend. You should be your best hype man, cheerleader, whatever you want to call it. Yes, you're going to fail. Yes, there's going to be hard times. Yes, you're going to be like, man, this sucks. And that's fine. We always joke through the suck because that's the best way to get around it. But don't ever think about that quitting is ever an option. Quitting should never be the end story. And if it is, then most likely you're going to end up there. So that's the biggest thing I can give.
That's some real stuff right there. I used to ask them the same thing, and I'd go over and talk to them because I was, in charge of the pool session a lot of times, and they just say, moment of weakness, Sergeant, they instantly regret it once they do that. But once they do it, there's no taking it back because the instructors are like, no, I saw you, you grabbed the wall, you walked over to the horn, or whatever. And we're like, that's pretty much it. We're not going to give you another chance. We can't count on you for the rest of the session. And also your teammates have that same feeling of like, no, we already saw you. We knew what you were going to do. Like that's pretty much it. You're choking, you're pushing away from the instructor, you were coughing and grabbing the side of the wall, that kind of thing. So that moment of weakness really overtakes people, and it's not, like you said, it's a slow process. You kind of like scratch away the surface a little bit the night before because they know that it's usually Black Thursdays is what we used to call it. They know Thursday it's going to be really difficult, and they think about it all night. And then when it finally happens, they're like, nope, I'm pulling chocks and getting out of here. But yeah, I think that's really important to do, and not letting quitting enter your mind is also really a huge thing. And it's difficult to do because you think about like, okay, I'm going to think about not thinking about quitting. Like, how do I practice that? Trick is think about something else.
It just shouldn't be, it just should never be an option.
Yeah.
That's good. Yes. Yeah. And here's the thing too. I'll tell you right now, Cadre and SERE are looking for heart. They're looking for passion. They're looking for the people who will not quit no matter what. I recall it was the first time I built a firecraft in my life, and I had no clue the difference between a coniferous and a deciduous tree. And I cut down a deciduous tree, of course, that, full of water. And I'm going at this thing for like 2 hours straight. But I didn't stop. I just kept going. And I didn't look at them and be like, are you guys going to call time yet? And like, I just kept going. And they admired that so much that they worked with me. I mean, they didn't time our first few until later, but they were like, dude, this girl has heart. She has grit, and she's not going to stop. And that's what we want to see. And I'll tell you, that's what they want, because at the end of the day, when you're a young airman carrying a bunch of students, you have your own heavy pack. They all have packs, and one of them wants to give up, or one of them gets hurt, and you're tired and hungry and whatever. And when everyone else is quitting around you, you can't be the one that's like, you know what, guys, you're right. You don't have to be the one who's carrying them. You have to be the one who's, in charge, leading the way, and inspiring, motivating. So they just want to make sure you just don't have it in your DNA, so it should just never be an option out there.
Boom. And I think, like your past, like you said, being a collegiate athlete helped prepare you for that, just that mindset of everything that you can do. And for you guys out there, another important thing, follow like that, put yourself in competitive situations as much as possible, and make sure that you are just constantly sharpening yourself. Don't be around those people that are going to bring you down, and they're fine with, a mediocre type job. If that's not the person that you want to be. If you want to be something like SERE, CCT, PJ, SR, make sure you're being around those people that are going to make you into that person, and just constantly thinking about how you can make yourself better. We only get a limited amount of time to make ourselves into the person we are. And who knows, something else might happen that'll stop us from, we get in a car crash or something like that, God forbid. And then it's over. We never know when that day's going to come. So take advantage of all the time you got, and make sure that you are sharpening yourself as much as possible. So yeah, that was really awesome. And thanks again for coming on. I'll just wrap it up. You guys have any saved rounds or anything? Peach, Trent?
Oh, appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
So like we were talking about, SERE Specialist, if you guys are interested in this awesome career field, they are in a more supporting role, but like Tiffany was talking about, you guys have so many opportunities as a SERE individual to just get your hands dirty, be outside, eat banana slugs, eat some goat balls, go ahead and, test out what your capabilities are. It is what you make of it, just like most other career fields, but this one more so because you are your own entity, especially when you're deployed or you're out there instructing people. I remember my SERE instructor, and I'm going to remember them for the rest of my life because they did an awesome job, and their job is really important because the things they put you through, you're not going to find at a lot of other places other than actual SERE school, with that type of mixture of individuals that you're going to find. And then, if you really want to grow your leadership style and skills, that is one awesome way to do it, because SERE Specialist, as a senior airman, you're leading colonels, majors, whatever, through the woods, and you're pretty much their lifeline to the real world, and they're going to trust in you no matter, you know, what you say. You can tell them all to eat ants, in which we did, or you can tell them to, you know, whatever, and they'll follow you. But it's a huge responsibility for a senior airman to take on. And like Tiffany was talking about, you know, she has so many opportunities from going to Freefall school and making sure that she keeps on expanding her horizons, not only with the stuff in the military and the reserves, but those business ventures that she's overtaken. So Tiffany, or AmericanHeart.co is the website for her. And then the Drinkin Broettes, make sure you go check them out, follow, like, review, all that stuff. A lot of entertaining stuff on there. So yeah, check out that episode. And the biggest thing, I love that last statement about, you know, what you should train on for those people that are going through, is just keeping that quit out of your mind and just constantly thinking about how am I going to make this better, and thinking about that next step, keeping that quitting out of your mind. Oh yeah. And the last thing I want to make sure we mention again is the pull-ups thing. Make sure, you know, I get that question a million times a day. Like, how do I get my pull-ups up? How do I get my push-ups up? You do them over and over again, and you make sure that you're doing them correctly. And then I think the rucking thing is worth mentioning again for those guys that are going out for SERE, guys or gals. Make sure that you're throwing on some weight if you don't have a collegiate background like she did. But I think it's important to just throw it, be under that weight, and know what it feels like. So again, Everly Stock for those rucks, since we did mention the ruck, make sure you go check it out. Use the code ONESREADY, 10% discount. We don't get anything for it. You guys get the discount. Awesome deal. So we want to work with people that are like that. They're offering awesome products to people that are going for this career field. So thanks again for listening, and thank again for Tiffany Hart for coming on here and spreading some knowledge about the SERE career field. I definitely learned a lot and had a lot of fun. So thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you guys later. Go out there and eat your breath.
Later.